Welcome to the Greatness Garage Podcast, the place where small businesses get big answers. I'm your host, Brad Borkus, founder of Epitome Coaching and Consulting, and this is the Greatness Garage. Welcome, Greatness Garages, back to another awesome episode. We've got Maurice here from Wurk, and we are going to understand what it is in the fitness world, what is life like, what are the challenges he's gone through as a small business owner, and how can you apply them in your world. Maurice, thank you so much for joining and visiting us this morning. How you doing?
I'm good, Brad. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Would you take a minute and introduce yourself to the garage?
Let's see. Obviously, my name. We're here in Minnetonka, Minnesota. I am the co-owner of Wurk Gym. Wurk Gym is a general fitness facility, but we also have a boxing and amateur MMA program, also professionals as well. Me and my business owner opened this gym back in 2019, right before COVID. So that was a great idea, right before the shutdowns and everything happened. So like that was how we started off. And, we came out of that thing pretty well. Like we had both been in the industry probably for 20 plus years. So we're dinosaurs in this industry. And my business partner has been a professional boxing coach and trainer for 20 plus years. And then we joined together and thought, hey, let's put this thing together and kind of put our concepts and our ideas about taking care of yourself and being well, but also like from the sports standpoint of it too, and implement that into the overall business. And we started that. We've been running since, like I said, 2019. So like we just had our 6-year anniversary. So, everything's going good.
Yeah, that's a big, and it's funny, but people don't realize sometimes in 5 years is a big milestone. So anytime you're tracking past that, that's pretty significant. So that's so awesome. So awesome. So the first segment we always jump into is I wish I would. I wish I would have done more of. I wish I would have done less of. I wish I'd done it differently. A great place for Greatness Garagers to listen to the places that we stumbled and we learned from and maybe piggyback off our lessons. So Maurice, take it away.
So, when we started our business, like we was just two guys, like with the personal training industry and fitness industry, if you don't have a facility, and I don't know how it is, but we've talked to a lot of other people around the country, like you usually just rent space out of someone else that owns something. So you open up like your LLC or S, whatever you want to call it, and then you train clients out and either you pay them rent or you pay them a percentage of what you have. So previously, before doing that, I was working out of a different gym, and then that gym had got shut down because they didn't have certain zones, certain codes, things, which was it was a massive lesson that I had no clue about because I had always had aspirations about opening my own facility, and it was something I just didn't know from like a real estate, especially commercial real estate standpoint, that your business has to be zoned and coded a certain way. Otherwise, if it's not, the city can come in and say, hey, you need to make these modifications to certain things. And if you don't, because you're running this business, you have this time to either start doing them or put some effort into it or they'll shut it down. So it was a phenomenal lesson that I got up from because like no one tells you such a thing. So having that in mind and going forward, like when we first opened up, we just decided like we had the same idea, or kind of the same philosophy about how we approach taking care of ourselves and also the clientele we work with. And we had said, okay, well let's open up a gym together, but like having no knowledge or anything of that nature. What I wish we would have did more research because we essentially what I did is I went off on my own first and realized, I don't know enough about this real estate thing and everything that comes with it. And when you meet like landlords, and some landlords are like, hey, like, I met a couple landlords that were like, hey, don't if you do this, don't worry about the city. Don't worry about the city showing up. You're like, well, what if they do? And because my past situation, they did show up. And you didn't do these things. So you have to ask these questions. And then, when you're meeting landlords, and some of the landlords you meet have been and have their building for 20 plus years, and you're assuming that they're being kind of upfront and honest with you about everything. But if it's something like a problem we actually ran into a lot was, okay, you need to have the ceiling sprinkled. So if you're going to have people in here, there needs to be a sprinkler system in place. Some landlords want to pay for it. Some landlords want you to pay for it. Some landlords hope you don't even bring it up. They won't even bring it up. And then when the city shows up and says, hey, you need about $40,000 thing. Otherwise, this all shuts down. So it's luckily getting that education previous for even making that venture and having everything shut down, I kind of had I knew, but I still didn't know enough. Like, okay, make sure you ask this, make sure you ask these things because it's things that you don't think about. Like, you got to have your bathrooms ADA compliant. If you don't have bathrooms, if you don't have it, and states and cities are all different. Because we were having rumors here, not necessarily where we're at, because we're in Minnetonka, where people were like going to the back, like going to your facility in your bathroom and saying, "Hey, you don't have this in place. You don't
just
have
test." Yeah.
Right. And like, and then they would call the city and say, "Hey, I have this disability and this doesn't give me access, and under like wherever we are, if we're in Minnetonka, it's under this jurisdiction or this code, and it's not up to date." And then someone shows up and said, "Hey, you need to get this fixed immediately." And then you find out like that person wasn't even planning on coming to your business at all. And you're thinking to yourself, you're like, are people, but people aren't like that, are they? Like, people aren't dishonest like that. And then when you tell that to like your realtor or your bro, like they laugh. They're like, people are, people are out there, some people, most people aren't. But
it's interesting. It takes all kinds. You said, you look at that, it takes all kinds. And sometimes people, they don't feel seen enough in their regular life. And so part of that is a cry because they don't feel that they get seen. And so they're putting our lives through hell. And the tough thing is too, is like, it's not that we don't want to be ADA compliant. Right. It's just that, like you said, we didn't know, we thought that it was good. And now we don't know. And now all of a sudden it's an instant, cost. Yep. So
it's like you have to do a significant amount of research on things. And really and don't feel like you're asking stupid questions about stuff, and it's because the things that popped up for us, because we opened up the gym with no investments, no loans. We opened it up with just our own money.
Wow.
And I mean, it sounds great, but when you're doing a facility, because this was an old welding factory or old welding business before, so there were certain things we had to do. We had to paint the walls with a certain type of paint. We gained an education in so many things on the fly because we had worked out. Okay, you're doing your negotiations, with your landlord and people who own the business, who own the building, and saying, hey, can we get 2 months of rent free? Can we get 1 month? And just knowing that you can ask that, but if you don't ask, you may have to start off day one paying rent. And we've heard people run into those stories, and luckily, the person we worked with to help us find the building helped us with asking all these different questions.
Navigate that,
we're educated on. And by doing that, we had a 2-month period where we're like, okay, we have to make all these repairs. So like like the repairs, but like we got to get the gym looking the way we want. We have to design it a certain way. And like we have no design experience, we have nothing, so we're learning all of this stuff on the fly. And, and I mean, and it's coming from like, okay, we need an electrician. We need automatic lights for these high ceiling lights. We need a way to have the door to unlock itself. And like you encounter this so much, like if you go to gyms, like, key fob systems. And then you look up and try to call that business and it doesn't exist. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I did a key fob thing today at my apartment building, at my gym. It's in everybody's life. But you have no idea who actually
installed.
Who do you call? You've never looked at like, well, what brand is this? So now you're trying to like, it was mad.
Well, and you know what I love about this? And so I think for the Greatness Garagers, I think that so many can relate to that kind of birth by fire, that kind of, building it as you fly it type of feeling. God, that is so common, isn't it? But, I think what I love there too is, what's funny is, the stuff that you start seeing yourself looking at, like the information on, like you're picking up bottles of ketchup to go like, where did they get this from?
Right.
You're like, you're trying to source stuff. It's hilarious.
So
where do you get those blinds? Like where do you...
like stuff like that. You're like, okay, like people have automatic lights. So like if we're going to allow people to come into the gym, you don't want the lights running 24/7 and destroy your electricity bill. So it has to go on and off. And you're like, I have, the clap, all that stuff, or you clap on, and you like, but then you're trying to look this up because the people who do it commercially are not people who do it residentially. And you're like, man, because all these things you essentially as a business owner, you take these common things for granted because you think they're so normal and common practice. And then when you have to actually hire the professionals to do it, it's unbelievable. We got destroyed in the beginning. Like it took us so long. to like when we first started painting, we painted the ceiling because it was rusted and you know, it was rusted. It was kind of, you know, they were just the welding business. They didn't really have customers. They were kind of a business to business thing. So they didn't have people and bodies walking in there. And like, you know, and so when we first painted the ceiling, we painted it one day, and then the next day when we came in, it had all fallen. So we came in and the entire floor was black. The ceiling was the same color as it was before we started. It took us 8 hours to paint the ceiling. And then we just like, and someone was like, well, what did you paint it with? And they told us the type of paint. It's like, well, you can't paint it with that. And you can't paint it over this type of material. Like, we didn't know. So it's like 8 days. And then we had to rent like this Zamboni thing to get all the paint off the floor. That took about a few hours. And then paint the ceiling again. But we walked in because like, high five, we did a great job today. Job well done. Because this is like in the middle of July and it's hot. We're inside. And then we come back in Sunday, I remember. And you open the door and you're just like, oh, the floor looks different.
Something's out of place, right?
It has a sheen to it because it was concrete. So it had a sheen to it. And I'm like, we cut the lights on. You're like, oh my God, it had rained. Like all of it had come running down. Oh, so you learn these things on the fly. You're like, okay, all right. And then the resiliency and the resolve you just start to develop, and the callous to like problems you start to just get. You start to get it, but you can only get it by like that experience, you know?
So let me ask this question then. So like you said, you wish you would have had more research, because I think there's a saying that says if you wait till you're perfect to launch, you'll never launch, right? And so you kind of got to go at some point. What would you have done? Like what research or what class or what would you have specifically done to have more information, prepare yourself a little better into getting into what what would that be?
It would be like, like getting a facility it's such a big deal. And it's so we didn't do any research on commercial real estate for ourselves. We had a commercial real estate agent who was walking us through the thing, because you realize that the functionality of like your gym or your business is like hindered on like, does the plumbing work in your bathroom? Does the AC work? Like one of the things, Brad, we had to figure out was like, okay, how old is our air conditioning unit? Does it need to be replaced in the next year? But it's just like, you're like, oh, AC, we go to business, the AC's on. Like what's the HVAC system? You're not like, when you're making your business plan and you're figuring things out. And I'll be honest with you, but we didn't have a business plan, just so everybody knows. We didn't have one. We just were like,
I think a lot of people can relate to that too.
Right. It's like, it's like, because we would go to like people when we go to banks, and they're just like, well, we're not going to fund this, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, you know what? We'll do it ourselves. And we did that, which was courageous, but it wasn't smart to do.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, actually, speaking of that is really, and I want people to realize this too, because this is a pain, and I've gone through certain pains in my life, especially my business life, that I've later actually appreciated. And part of it is the rigors that a bank will force you through, right? Sometimes are really good, because it's like, oh, yeah, I probably should have had that plan.
Right. Because, like here in Minnesota, like you can't have, like it's freezing here. Like you have to make sure your heat works, and you got to make sure. But if you're on the hook for the HVAC system and realize like that, whatever the lease that you signed and whatever the agreement is okay, am I responsible for the repairs? And am I responsible for all the repairs up front? Are they going to spread it out the rest of the lease? These are all things that we just didn't research going into, like, because you're thinking my business, the fitness side of it. Okay, where are we going to put the equipment? What kind of stuff are we going to do? Are we going to sell that? And you're not looking at where your home is going to be for the next 5 to 6 years.
We call it arm's length operation. You're thinking of the stuff that you're used to doing in your job, not the facility that you're doing the job in.
And you learn like, oh, okay, because we have two different types. Like, is it gas or electric? And if your place has both, then you got to call both companies and say, hey, I need to go turn this on and go turn this on. You're thinking, because it's not something you've ever had to worry about. But if your gym in Minnesota doesn't have the heat and it's 15 below in your facility and people are wearing jackets and hats.
We're doing plyos today. We're just doing calisthenics. You're going to run.
Because Brad, it happens. Like you feel like now, because like I just hope someone else doesn't have to go through, because you feel like because it's such when it's brought upon you, you're like, oh yeah, no shit, that's right. You know,
it is the hindsight of it, right? Yeah.
You know, we walk in because like the transition of seasons, and then you walk into your gym and you can see your breath, and you're like, what's going on? Like I was like, did they not turn on automatic? It's like, oh yeah. I got to, and you know, and you got to look at your meters because we're connected to like 3 or 4 other businesses. We have edge units, so we don't have anybody on the west side of the wall, but on the other side, we do. And you may share a meter with someone, and they have to split those meters up. And if you don't call,
you're gonna get the bit.
They don't do it. Brad, something simple like trash pickup. You have to tell, hey, you have to come get the. Like no one ever told you. They're like, oh, okay, I have to order my dumpster. Well, how big a dumpster? They're like, 2 yards, 3 yards. You're like, yards?
Yeah, right.
How much trash are you planning on having, you know? So it's like, it's so many little bitty subtle things that you just take for granted, and that you understand other business put time and effort into, you just didn't think about. And
and if you don't put the time in before, right, you're dealing with that heater issue 30 minutes before opening for the day, right?
and you know, and then you find out that, like, you know, here pipes burst all the time. So here, just knowing your environment, you're like, oh yeah, we're going to be locked up for the next 2 days because everyone's pipes are bursting because it's freezing. And you're like, oh my God, but we have to open up the gym. Then you're hoping people are understanding, like, hey, listen, keep your jacket on, keep your hat and gloves on. It's freezing in here. You know,
when we're saying warm up today, we're serious about it, right?
Like once you warm up, like you're gonna still have to keep your jacket on. Like, so, you know, please have some grace with us today.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like and you're saying back, because I haven't thought about these days in such a long time, but you just like you try to get past the embarrassment because it's an education. It's a lesson. You have people who are, and like we've had art people that we work with have been beautiful for us. Like they've been understanding, like people that we have worked with for years, and they just transitioned over to us. So like they've been super helpful. Like they were instrumental in getting us through like COVID and helping us with everything, and still being here and all those things that we had to go through, from support to being there for us. Like, you know, because a lot of people were like, well, I'm not, when we open back up, I don't feel safe and I'm not going back to gyms. And now you're trying to figure out, okay, we got to figure out income now. Like, you know, it was going good at first, and now like you get, and then like, okay, so what do we do now? And like we just had such a, I can't thank them enough, the population that's been here and what they've done to help us like through this whole thing.
You know what? And I will say that too. Going through the shit. This is one of those unintended benefits. Going through the shit, you really get to appreciate your people, employees, customers, vendors. Like you really get to sit with them and say, wow, that's why I really am with you, right? Like that's why I love you so much. Yeah,
absolutely. And like it's cool. It is so immeasurable because you understood, like, you know, everybody going through all those things at that time, why they didn't want to come and play. And, you know, but, you know, and at the same time, you're like, hey man, like, you know, like we need you. And for,
we still got to make it work. Right. Yeah.
You know, and to have that, man, like, we don't thank them. We haven't thanked them enough for doing that and being with us during that time. Like, I mean, it's just, and when you make something, like, if you know, like, and we put it up like tons of times, like on like our Instagram page, like all the time, and we have shown the process of like what it used to look like, and the bare bones of everything, and doing all the, you know, the work, the painting, putting everything together, like just trying to figure it out. So then once you have this thing from what it looks like to what it is now, like, and what it looks vastly different. Yeah. And to walk into your space and say you created this thing, and to have it and have people like support it, like people pay money to come into this thing. Yeah. Like, you never want to take that for granted. Like there's a level of humbleness that you have for something like that, you know, and like you're thankful to have gone through the nightmares of it all, and to come out like, here's this thing we built, people like it, and they can talk like 1,000 other things, and they're choosing to come to us, and you just always want to be. And we are grateful for just that small thing. You don't have a company, and then you go into other businesses, and you're a lot more appreciative of other small businesses. Because I don't know if they had to paint the ceiling in the camp didn't have the heat on, you know, twice. You know what I mean? So you're like, oh man. So you're just like, this is great. It's like, it's just such a great feeling once you get through it and you're happy you went through all of that.
Yeah, that is so awesome. I love it. Well, that's the stuff. So I can't wait for the next segment. So the next segment is called "You Aren't Gonna Believe This," and we've already got plenty of stuff that we've worked with us, stories that we're not gonna believe, and the stuff that just, this segment is really built on the Greatness Garagers, seeing that when stuff goes wrong, you're not alone. It's not you. It stuff happens, and we get through it together. So Maurice, tell us, we aren't gonna believe this. What's the story you got for that?
There are so many.
I
There are
know, right?
so there's so many. So like we have a fighting element to like our gym with boxing and
Hmm.
MMA. And my business partner Delico had been in it for a long time, but there's so many pieces of that a lot of people, because it's a professional sport, and there's so much that goes into it, like which you don't understand, and because there's like any other, it's a business, so you're
Hmm.
on the back end of all these things. So like you understand, like when you start to get to like ticket sales or promotions and things, because like when you're looking at fighting, all you see is just the athletes up front, but you don't see how everything kind of builds itself up.
Right.
So like when you're developing your program, you're developing like what kind of audience do you want to go after, what kind of fighters, what kind of people do you want to kind of bring in. It's tough because like there's a certain type of person who wants to do this, a certain type of person who wants to go in and do fighting as a professional sport, because there's
Hmm.
not a lot of money in it up front.
Right. I bet. Yeah. Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very, very, very little. And a lot of those things, a lot of those, you can't believe it. Like you do not believe what people go through physically and what they violently put their body through. I mean, for nothing.
Yeah. Nothing.
So when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
sitting down and you're looking at, when you watch it like MGM Graham in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
and you're watching these and it sees $50 million, $30 million, or whatever the big payday is, when you get to like the very bare bones in the beginnings and you're seeing fighters and they're getting $10 or and because once everything, because a lot
Yeah.
of times there's not so much money up front and you have to pay for training, and you also have to have a job that's understanding of this very flexible schedule that you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So it's, you wouldn't believe the dedication and the passion that people, when I tell you the schedule that people go through and have,
Hmm.
and then what they financially get as they're on
Oh,
their path to get to
yeah.
this, you wouldn't believe
Yeah.
that
They ain't in it for the money, are they?
you're
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. I know.
and
Yeah.
it's violent and it's
Yeah.
high risk, high reward. And
Yeah.
sometimes, depending on the promotion, they give you an option. Hey, do you want money out of your purse, or do you want to pay for health insurance? And you're
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
figure out, well, okay, I'll take my chances and take the purse money
Yeah.
and go to insurance. Hopefully,
Yeah.
nothing happens. Then you get punched in the eye, or you get something,
Yeah.
and now you got to take this to
Oh,
the hospital. And it's not
yeah.
zero insurance. It's a certain type. You get this coverage or you get this type of coverage. I don't
Yeah.
want to think
Yeah.
they have to give you something. They can't give you
Yeah.
nothing. But if you want to take more of the upfront money up first, then you can do it that way. You
Yeah,
know?
well, I mean, and you're in a field where like you said, the risk of bodily injury is significantly high. And what, interesting you say that too. Like you, it's not like you get to the highest level and then say, okay, I'm going to train like mad. You've got to train like mad all the way up to get to that level even. And
That's
it's
the
just,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can only imagine. And you hear kind of people talking about this stuff a little bit, but you look at into a lot of the people that come into gyms, you see it in boxing and MMA, like the duffel bag they bring in is worn and tattered and like I
Yes.
mean it's been through some miles, and yeah, it's got to be such a, and I think what an appreciation to have for that perspective to say, yeah, we're in our own fight of a business of a small business owner, but
Exactly.
yeah, looking at that, like, and even in business owner, that's the one thing I think, there's an appreciation that says in the early parts of business, how much money you make. I lost, $500 this month, or I lost,
Right.
like
Right.
for
You
the first
know,
little while, it takes some time, so.
but to watch, because to be on this side, and I don't know, probably your experience, Brad, you tell me like or not, but like I work with a lot of people, and most people are not thrilled about their job. It's like, it's not their passion, but it provides them what they need for their family, for their necessities. It provides
Yeah.
for them. So they do it. But you're looking at people who like it's not doing that at all. and yet you have to commit hours and hours to so just see people, just to see that dedication and discipline from a person who's like, maybe it goes well, maybe it doesn't go well. Like there's no guarantee, because you don't get an hourly wage. You're putting in 30, 40 hours of work, and you may get $100 paycheck after a 6 or 8 week camp, maybe, depending on what you're doing.
And that's what I love about your example here, because it is so akin to what it is in that entrepreneurship. You know, you can take your 9 to 5, there's stability there. You are trading a paycheck for maybe a lesser purpose, right? You might feel like this, hey, you know, I'm kind of got to do it. I don't get to choose my own vacation. I got to kind of do what they tell me to do. Or you take this leap to the other side where you're going to get kicked square in the chin. You're going to take it, but there's a great upside. And you said that risk reward. And you know, it's interesting. I wonder if they cognitively process through the amount of risk reward. Are they just more risk, prone to that? Are they okay with that risk? Or are they just going because there's so much passion that they're kind of blinding themselves to the risk, hopefully, that says, okay, just you want, please God, don't get hurt. Please God, get enough money so it doesn't cost me more than my other job is paying me. You know, like, are they just going on faith? And God, what an interesting time in life, huh?
Yeah, and you know, it's like we do a really good job of like because like the amount of people watch it, and it's also shocking. Another piece of like, you won't believe it, the amount of people who email and call us and say, oh, I want to be a professional fighter. And you're like, well, what is your experience? And they're like, none. I'm like, you're joking. Like, you wouldn't call up, you know, here. You wouldn't call.
There was a guy in the bar. I think I kicked his butt last week.
Right? You know, and we get that, like, oh, I did a bar fight, and it's like, but you don't know, you know, like, to look at it, because it's a professional sport. It's like, it's a skill and discipline, but like, you wouldn't call up your state. You wouldn't call up the NFL. Like, hey, I'd like to be a pro NFL player. But like, we get this a lot, and that there's a business side of it that, you know, because like some of the fires, like, you got to sell tickets, and like you have to sell tickets, and you have to have a social media presence. If they're like, they might pick a person with a bigger, so you may have the better fight record, but if this fighter has a better social media presence, and we're going to sell more tickets in this area, they may pick that fighter over you.
Yeah.
So there's
you look at Paul, Jake Paul that got into it, right? He that pushed him into being able to get the opportunities he got, right? Yeah.
So, and it's things like that, because you have fighters who haven't looked at the business side. They only look at their skill set. So when they come in and look at, well, I want to do this professionally, like, that's a whole different animal than just like what you're able to do physically. You have to mentally be strategic about what you do, when you take your fights, how you take your fights, how you prep and train, what weight class. It's like, well, I'm in 155. It's like, well, in your state, there's too many of them. Should you drop down and wait and get more opportunities? Should you go up? What do you? It's like, you have to think about all these things. All these things matter, and they don't. And doesn't know anything about these things, you know.
Yeah, and what I love about it too is that, you know, there's this thing that, and we get the same thing as business owners, right? Where people look at it going, oh, if you can run a business, I can. Everybody looked at Kimbo Slice and said, oh, you know, I could do what he did. Right. And you're like, no, like the chance of you going from the street fighter to that is, you know, like, come on.
Solid reference, Brad. Solid reference. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was like, oh,
I can do that. I got in a street fight one time. I kicked his ass, you know,
Yeah, so like, you get those things, but you get this education on the side of you, like, oh, okay, it makes sense how they do it, how they promote it, how those things happen.
And you look at boxing, they call it the sweet science, right? Like, I love listening to people talk about the science of boxing, because it's so much more than fighting. It's so much more than fighting. And even the MMA and stuff like that. You know, I was a wrestler, and you know, that control phase, I get that part of it. But then you look at all the jiu-jitsu that goes into it. It is amazingly technical interweaving of all that stuff. It's really cool.
It is a violent chess match in there, and like,
said. I like that.
You know, and it's just like, if you leave something open, like, you're leaving something open that you don't know you're leaving open, and someone is seeing it and just
they'll tell you,
and it's something small. You know, it's something very small. Like, you're not picking up. You know, it's like you're playing poker out there. You're showing your talent. You're showing your talent. Like, you don't know it, but they're picking it up over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, that part of the sport doesn't get enough. The IQ that's invested in it. How much you got to have over the physical violence of it. That obviously sells the tickets and everything. But when you look at to be able to respond and react and understand and know and predict 3 or 4 moves ahead from someone else. And it's like, and if you're wrong, could be lights out. You could train 8 weeks and your fight was 5 seconds long. That was it. And it's just like
that's a
all
good
of
point.
that work. So you look at people who dedicate their life and I've never seen it on this side before. We had the gym, my business partner who's been in it a lot longer than me, and you see people walk in every day and like it's not for the money because there's not a lot of it up front. Hopefully you get the opportunity. So there's people dedicate themselves, adults, not children, like grown adults with families and kids to this profession. When you're like, why don't you go get like a 9 job, with benefits and vacation.
That you don't get punched in the face.
and not get hit by nobody. And to see people to willingly be like, I'm willing to take this chance and take this risk because it's something I'm passionate about and what I want to do. It's just to see the cool mindset. Because it's the same thing with like being an entrepreneur. Like the amount of people we told we're going to open up a business, they were like, and you tell them they're just like, why would you do that? You're like, oh, it seems like it'd be fun. So they look at us the same thing with way less violence involved with it.
Exactly. But, what a cool thing. And I think too, and not only that too, as you commit into something like that, time is not on your side. So the longer you do it, the more very cool. So thanks you for that an epic story there so far, man. This is amazing. So the third segment is about aligned language, and so these can be quotes, these can be mantras, these can be ways of going about and framing things in the language that you intentionally use to support yourself in your business and the success that you've had. What is your aligned language that you use?
There was a quote. I forget kind of the actual everything, so I'm terrible at memorizing quotes, but like it essentially was talking about, and it was one of the Stoic philosophers. I don't know if it was like Marcus Aurelius or one of those, and they were just the mindset of like, and like when I say this because I say it to people often, and the way, and some people take it the wrong way, which you can, but it talks about how insignificant you are, and for me, when I heard that, because you're trying to make decisions and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, you get so caught up in like, well, how are they going to feel about it? How's the audience going to feel about it? How are customers going to? And it almost can jam up your creativity process. It can almost jam you up because you're so worried about the potential backlash or the potential, hey, they may not like it, or the loss in customers or the loss in sales. You get it, and it prevents you as a professional from you getting to the next thing you need to do because you have a path, because that's the tough part. I always tell people the best thing about being a business owner, and it's the worst thing, it's like no one's telling you what to do, but also no one's telling you what to do. You have to go find it, and you have to seek it out, and you need to take chances and risk on things. And if you get so bogged up and so jammed up with what people think, your next thing to become the best thing you're supposed to be, your next potential may not be what the audience likes. So just this mindset I had is like, I'm insignificant. I'm not that important. I need to go along my journey and my path with that mindset. Like what I need to do is not going to be so like, oh my God, it's going to rattle everyone's cake. I'm so important. You get in that concept and you get it because you got bills and you got to have sales. You got to have perspective. So my mantra for me is like when I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm insignificant. I'm insignificant. And it just, for me, it frees up my mind to stop thinking about, well, what are they going to think about? Because it holds
stops you overthinking about, absolutely.
You overthink about it because you don't want to do, but like you may need to do that. You may need to do the thing that creates discussion. You may need to do the thing, and not out of malice, not out of just ill intent. That may be the next step to doing the things. When I talk to people, and they're like, "Oh, what's it like? What's ambition like?" It's like it's frightening vulnerability. It's like
exactly.
You take your
well
thing,
said.
It's this thing that you have that you're trying to create, and it's being subjected and submitted into a world of people who have already been doing it longer than you. But for it to grow, you have to throw it out there and see how it does. Like it's hit its maximum level.
So well said.
Before it has to be tested now. Like we see with the fighters, like you've hit the maximum level. The only way path is you have to go test it against well-experienced, well-conditioned, who have been doing a lot. You can't get to level 2 until you take maxed out level 1 and throw it out there. But sit there and hold your feet back and say, well, how do they feel about that? What they're going to do? And I'm like,
Yeah.
So my mindset for me was like, it's not that important to them. I'm insignificant in how it appeals to them. It's not that important to me. It is, but I have to do it. I have to. Don't think that decision is going to be so, oh my goodness, that it's going to crumble. You're like, just
don't allow the paralysis to set in, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting. I've got two little girls, and one of the things they say is when you become a parent, a child is your heart living outside your body. Like that's so exposed.
All the way.
Right? That same
all
thing.
The way.
When you have a business, and all those out, it's your heart outside your body, exposed for the world to see. And the thing is, if you get worried about what everybody thinks about it, you're going to stop from doing the things that you need to do to fulfill what is really there, right?
Right. And like, it's like you need, and like growth is painful. Like we grew so much but like when we first got the gym, everyone was don't, the gym's completely black. So everyone was like, don't paint the gym black, like all like that, or don't do this and don't do that. And we're like, we can't keep worrying about people's opinions. Like you just can't. And you get why, especially now with like social media, and you just worry, oh my God, someone took this the wrong way. And here's the thing, that's going to happen. People are going to take things the wrong way. It's like, but hopefully you have an audience and you have a trust and you build some integrity in what you do. That like the people who can look to like see what it is that you're doing, you don't have to worry about that noise.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about. But it's the growth, and because you're trying to find your path. There's no one saying, "Hey, do this next." You have to take a chance, and it may not be the right thing you were supposed to do, but it made you better because now you have a better perspective of what you're looking at, the mistakes, and like people ask, like, would you do anything different? Aside, like a lot of it, no. Like from what we were in the beginning to what we are now, it's like me and my business partner, like we're like family now. We were just a couple. We were co-workers.
Yeah,
like we were kind of friends, but not like we are now. And like we've bumped it because now having a business partner, like that dynamic is a whole different monster because like you've never done business with each other before. You never had a conversation of like, you have a crippling gambling addiction or something.
There you go. How do I'm not putting them on blast, right? But the thing is, like, you got to deal with conflict. Yeah, absolutely.
And like that is a business owner. It's like conflict, like you need it. You need the conflict with people. And it's the biggest thing is that conflict within yourself and the accountability of like going forth and being forward about that conflict and seeking it out. Like I need to be conflicted with because what I believe now I might be wrong in. And I need to go see if I'm wrong, if I'm different, like, okay. And like your ego just takes the nastiest shot.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's brutal.
There's a saying that says the most dangerous place on earth is the 6 inches between your ears.
Oh, and you and like Brett, like nothing's further from the truth than that, because like you realize like how brutal, like the downfall of like many, and potentially the downfall of yourself of like this ego and this perspective that you're right, and to seek that you're not right. It is a level of vulnerability a lot of people are not going through, and they regret that it's easier just to avoid it. I'm right. We'll just deal with it versus like, God, I might be wrong, and I just posted about this a month ago, and I might have to be like, you know what, guys, I was wrong on this one. Or just in every single thing that you do as a business owner, you have to be in a constant state of trying to improve and get better and see like where can I make my path. And it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it is. And what I love about your I am insignificant is there's another one I've heard that says when you're facing these challenges and that anxiety shows up, the saying is get over yourself. And it's not to be mean to yourself, but it's mean to say, let it go.
Let it go.
And so I love I know where you're coming at with that perspective. So you're insignificant in the world of their problems because they've got all their problems. Just do your thing, right?
It's like, that's the thing, because it's like your growth is not pretty. It's not, it's ugly. And it's at the face of, like I said, like your ego, your vulnerability. And like, that's not, I mean, and I'm in a sport and I'm in an environment where like, it's very like, like don't show type of weakness type of thing.
Yeah.
And you may have to have periods of that where you just show it because, hey, I'm not right in this thing. And a lot of that when we first started up, it was a lot of that stuff. Like I don't want to look stupid. Like I don't want to ask, like, should we ask about the AC? Like, it's like, duh, you should. You got now you don't let that go. Like that's a no-brainer now. Like when people ask me, Oh, I did, because we now have got a level of success where people, especially here, like we'll get young people ask like, "Oh, should I ask about this?" You're like, "Absolutely, should ask about that." Should I ask for should I get like a month? Or it's like, what should I do? You're be like, but that was us.
It's funny you say that. There's a saying that says, "Will you feel dumber if you ask about it, or will you feel dumber if you don't?"
Oh, and that don't thing is like, but then you don't admit to it. You just don't. You're like,
right.
Oh, we're okay. We're all right. And in the back of your mind, you're like,
your arm just dangling here.
You're like, you'll never see that person again. You should have asked them.
and you know what, too? Like, it's funny that there's so much knowledge. Like, when I'm flying places, I love I'm a why guy, and that's my name. But just to ask these questions, you learn so many nuggets from people, and and like yourself, the Greatness Garage here is getting so much value from you today, just by you sharing this authentic experience. And I think that's the thing, is if we can share these authentic experiences and get people to see what this is, and kind of like you said, let your shoulders down, let your guard down, and just give it your best shot. One of the things that I remember is, when you look at every week, professional analysts understands pick who's going to win the games. NFL, NBA, MLB, doesn't matter. And they're like I look at the ones when they go through the seasons, and these guys are perfect. They've lived it for their entire lives, and they're at 40% doing pretty good. It's like, come on,
going all right.
60% wins the league. I'm like, holy smokes, guys, they're 60%. So don't worry about it, So
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. You'll be fine. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, Maurice, I want to thank you so much today. Greatness Garage. I hope you laughed your ass off as much as we did. It was a great time. And this authenticity, this is out there. This is what we seek to share with you, so that you can pick up these lessons from us. And don't forget to ask about the air conditioning. Okay.
Don't forget. Please.
Maurice, thank you
Brad,
so much. We appreciate you so much. Greatness Garagers. Thank you for it. We'll see you next time. Have a great one.
Thank you, Brad.
All right. Remember, action is what makes this information all worth it. If you need help figuring out what that action is, go to callwithbrad.com and we'll get some clarity and help you figure out what that should be.